I now want to bring in NBC's Ken Dilanian. NBC's Morgan Chesky is in Spanish Fork, Utah, where Tyler Robinson is now being held. And with me here in studio, Evie Poumpouras, former Secret Service special agent and an MSNBC law enforcement analyst. And Evie, starting with you, Governor Cox there saying that this suspect may have been indoctrinated by leftist ideology. From your perspective, where does that lead the investigation?
So they're going to look at his online experience, right? His online usage, and whatever he was indoctrinated by is really not the issue. It's what was he consuming, what was he watching, and it really shows you the vulnerability that minds have to this information. And then what is it that led him to do this? Because you have a very stark difference as far as what we're seeing, right? Good student, no issues, and then just within this short window of time to make this leap. Usually what we see, somebody is typically troubled over a long-term period. They might have psychological issues. And I'm not saying some of these things didn't maybe manifest later on, typically is what we see, but we're seeing very kind of like two almost different personas. And that's what's troubling here. And I think that's what a lot of people are talking about as far as the investigation. The other thing is they're trying to get access to his iCloud usage. I was actually kind of surprised that they haven't been able to get that yet. You know, you have to get subpoenas and get access because we are days in. So I was really interested in that. But that's really going to show a history, what he's been doing long term, who he's been talking to, what he's been searching, what he's been writing.
And we're going to talk to Morgan in just a moment about that seeming dichotomy between who he was and then the person that may or may not have committed this act. And Ken, we did get some more information from FBI Director Kash Patel about where this investigation stands right now. What are you hearing as the latest?
Yeah, Ariel, authorities have already disclosed a significant amount of evidence that they say connects this suspect to the scene. For example, they say they saw him on video on the Utah Valley campus in the morning wearing clothes similar to the ones he was wearing at his home when they surveilled him before arresting him. And they obtained a message where he talked about hiding a rifle wrapped in a towel in the woods, which, of course, is exactly how they found what they say was the murder weapon. But now the FBI director is revealing even more evidence, including DNA evidence that would definitively connect this suspect to the scene. Take a listen to FBI Director Kash Patel.
Evidence that could be collected and had been collected, including a screwdriver that was found on the rooftop. Also, we went over to the scene in the wooded area where the firearm was discarded, and the firearm had a towel wrapped around it. And I can report today that the DNA hits from the towel that was wrapped around the firearm and the DNA on the screwdriver are positively processed for the suspect in custody.
So this is really important because, as you said, the suspect is not talking to the FBI and hasn't confessed to authorities. So they will have to prove their case, and DNA evidence, as you know, is among the best evidence there is.
And Evie, we know the roommate is talking to authorities, according to the governor and others who have briefed us. So how important is that person's account going to be in this investigation?
It is important because also there's communication with them about the weapon, hiding the weapon and where that weapon was. And it's interesting, he's not talking, which normally they would talk because they want people to know that they did this. I would suspect it's their defense counsel that's advising them don't say anything. However, on the opposite end, all this from the suspect side, families talking, friends are talking, even their significant others talking. So really everybody's adding all that stuff. So in the end, you're really not going to need a confession because they're going to have everything and they're going to be able to connect those dots. And I do think it's wise that everybody is sharing and being forthcoming and giving information, considering the overall totality of what this means. Because this is a significant thing. I know people are calling it a political event, right? But I don't see it that way. When I see something like a political attack or assassination, I see a president, I see members of Congress, because they actually have a political position, right? And I'm actually not worried about them because I know there's concerns about heightened security for members of Congress. They're going to get their security. They have U.S. Secret Service for the president. You're going to have congressional people, are going to have Capitol Police, local state police. Charlie Kirk is something else. He's someone who had a podcast. He had a show. He spoke. He was going out there talking to people. This person is no different than anybody else who has a show, a podcast, even us here. This is someone who's sharing his insight, his opinion. Now it's fair game for everybody. This is opening something else. This is saying if you share your opinions and people don't agree with you, that they will, and they perceive it as a threat. It's perceived as a threat. They're taking action. So my biggest concern, this is a watershed moment because we are moving away and breaking away into something else. That if you are a public figure sharing information that others don't agree with, I can do something to you. And then how do those people protect themselves? That is different. What are you going to do? Have private security for everybody? And he even had private security.
Right.
But who would have thought to put counter snipers on the rooftop? The only time we would do that from security perspective would be for a president. I don't want to give more away.
And we saw what happened to our current president when he was running for office.
Right, but he gets you a Secret Service. Typically these types of threats, like with Charlie, he had security, but they're thinking the attack's going to come from close proximity. Charlie's sitting here, somebody's at the mic, they're going to reach over the rope line or the people around, they might do something to him physically. Now you're looking at a whole different scenario. And I think you're going to see people being extremely concerned now, going out, speaking up, because you don't know how somebody else is going to interpret that. Copycats. Absolutely. I'm not saying this because I want this to happen, but that's the biggest concern here. Someone's going to see this. And the other thing is, too, it's hard to go after a president. It's hard to go after a politician or a member of Congress. I'm going to go after soft targets like the Charlie Kirks of the world.
Yeah, this is creating a paradigm of vulnerability for so many public figures, whether they're inside the political arena or outside the political arena. But one thing we have heard is that the parents, the father specifically of the suspect, should be lauded for essentially turning his own son in. So, Morgan, I know that NBC News spoke to Robinson's grandmother, and we've seen some quotes from her and other family members. It seems like it's hard for them to reconcile the man that they knew with the man who allegedly shot Charlie Kirk in such a visceral way. Can you tell us more about what you're learning?
Yeah, certainly, Ariel. Good to be with you again. As far as what we know now about what the family has said, the grandmother told one of our colleagues here in Utah that her grandson was, quote, squeaky clean. Those are the words she used to describe him. That was, of course, prior to officials coming out and naming him publicly as the primary suspect in the shooting death of Charlie Kirk. We also heard from a classmate, though, someone who had gone to school with Tyler Robinson for a decade, and she conveyed the shock to our team and said that this was a student who was high achieving, who was quiet, who was never an issue, at least in the classrooms that she shared with him. And she said, whenever I looked at Tyler, I imagined someone destined to become an executive or a CEO, someone who was very successful. And she had a very telling question at the end of our interview saying that, I can only wonder what caused him to deviate from that path into the one that he's currently on right now. And I think that's one of the biggest questions that remains in this ongoing investigation. Of course, we know that forensic online evidence could hopefully shed some light on that. But I think another telling aspect of this is the fact that Tyler's roommate, that the governor identified as his partner in a romantic relationship, was stunned and had no idea that he was planning or capable of an attack of this nature, really compounding the fact that as of this moment in time, this 22-year-old Utah native that has no criminal record is currently sitting behind me in this Utah jail under special watch, so authorities can keep a close eye on him. And one final point here, Ariel, that I think just goes to show why authorities are trying to figure this all out is the fact that, yes, he was certainly motivated to the point, authorities say, to fire that one fatal shot, killing Charlie Kirk. But on the flip side, 30 hours later, he was also able to be convinced by his father and a family friend following that act to turn himself into authorities. And so we see this turn. We have heard reports that, of course, he initially did not want to do that he, said, potential self-harm could happen instead of that. But yet here we are, and he's now in custody. So many outstanding questions remain, and we hope to learn much more when formal charges are filed tomorrow, and we can get our hands on some of those court documents that may shed new insight here.
And they certainly could. And to Morgan's point, Evie, Kristen Welker asked Governor Cox about how a young man like this, who seemingly had that squeaky clean reputation, 4.0 average, drops out of school, how he could become radicalized. Here's what the governor had to say.
Clearly, there was a lot of gaming going on. Friends that have confirmed that there was kind of that deep, dark internet, the Reddit culture, and these other dark places of the internet where this person was going deep.
Do you believe that social media played a direct role in this assassination?
I believe that social media has played a direct role in every single assassination and assassination attempt that we have seen over the last 5-6 years. There is no question in my mind.
So I read something this weekend that was pretty telling about social media and how it sort of externalized our internal monologues in a way that was never intended. What do we do at this point to investigate not only this suspect's social media, but then to go even deeper and try to prevent something like this from happening in the future? We know that some of his beliefs may have been espoused even on other platforms like Discord.
Yeah, everybody needs to stop posting. Even on my way coming in here, I'm trying to read up on the news. Everyone's putting their opinion, and everything is negative. Everything is volatile. We each have, and he said this in part of that briefing, he said, we each have to have agency. So we are, it's not just social media. We're part of it. We are all escalating. So even when you put your opinion, even when you're sharing this stuff, we are all escalating. Everybody needs to stop because we all are playing in a role as far as these things happening.